Do you remember when Sheryl Swoopes said this? Well, Kelsey Mitchell finally had enough. After months of silence, polite press lines, and media noise, the Indiana Fever veteran just went nuclear, dropping the kind of truth that scorched the entire WNBA conversation about Caitlin Clark. Well, Kelsey Mitchell decided it was time to stop the nonsense and put respect back where it belongs. This wasn't a casual remark or a fluffy endorsement. No, Mitchell's words carried weight because of who she is and what she represents. When she speaks, it isn't just another soundbite, it's survival talking. She's lived through the worst years of Indiana basketball. She's carried lineups so thin they felt like G-League experiments. She's endured coaching carousels, blowouts, and years of irrelevance. And in the middle of all that pain, she kept showing up, kept putting points on the board, and kept dragging this franchise forward. And then you bring in Caitlin, who changed the world, changed the dynamic of the basketball, and as a friend, as a player, you better appreciate her because, certain doors have opened because she's come to the Fever and you have to respect her, and I love the teammate and person in her because she's accepted it with so much grace and even welcomed us with open arms to, make this thing happen. So I think it just took a lot of big pieces to make, what it is now. That's why this interview hit so hard. Because when you ask Mitchell about Caitlin Clark, you don't get a rehearsed cookie-cutter answer. You don't get some hollow, she's a great teammate line. You get reality, raw, direct. And in this case, it was a reality check. Mitchell didn't just praise Caitlin Clark. She validated what so many fans already know but what bitter voices refuse to admit. Caitlin Clark has changed the entire basketball ecosystem. Period. She's not just a star. She's not just another scorer. She's a cultural shift wrapped in a jersey. And coming from Kelsey Mitchell, the one player who could have easily resented all the hype, that's monumental. Mitchell looked into the camera and essentially said, without Caitlin, none of this happens. The sold-out arenas, the primetime coverage, the global spotlight, that's Clark. And instead of fighting it, Mitchell embraced it. No jealousy, no snide digs, just respect. And here's the part that stings for people like Swoopes. It wasn't empty praise. It was respect built on balance. Because while Mitchell credited Caitlin with transforming the league, she also reminded everyone, subtly but firmly, that before Clark arrived, she was the one keeping the Fever alive. Think about it. This is the same Kelsey Mitchell who carried Indiana through 5-win seasons, who kept showing up while jealous veterans now sitting in the media chair couldn't resist throwing shade at Clark. Mitchell didn't need to tear anyone down. She just told the truth. She laid out a timeline. She kept the lights on, Caitlin brought the electricity, and together they're building something unstoppable. And that's exactly why this moment is so powerful. Sheryl Swoopes, for all her accomplishments, has made it her personal crusade to undermine Caitlin Clark's rise. She's questioned her stats, doubted her accolades, and even suggested her hype is manufactured. But Kelsey Mitchell's words cut through all of that. She didn't just defend her teammate, she defended the future of the WNBA itself. She reminded everyone that Clark isn't here to erase history, she's here to expand it. The brilliance of Mitchell's comments is how they simultaneously uplift Caitlin while exposing the pettiness of Swoopes' criticism. Because if a player like Kelsey, who had every reason to feel overshadowed, isn't bitter, why is Swoopes? Why does one of the game's legends spend more time tearing down Clark than celebrating the way she's growing the sport? That's the uncomfortable question Mitchell just forced onto the table. This wasn't just commentary. It was a mic drop. A seismic moment where one of Indiana's most loyal veterans drew a line in the sand and said, enough is enough. Kelsey Mitchell has lived through the grind, carried the weight, and now, alongside Caitlin Clark, she's ready to build something bigger. Because here's the truth. Leadership isn't about who yells the loudest, it's about who stands for something when it matters. And Mitchell stood tall, shining a spotlight on Clark's impact while exposing the jealousy that's been eating at the sidelines. The Fever aren't just surviving anymore, they're thriving. And Sheryl Swoopes. She just got checked by someone who actually earned the right to speak. Kelsey Mitchell's loyalty to Indiana has never been about the spotlight. For years it was thankless, buried under the rubble of losing seasons and constant rebuilding promises. But in 2025, that loyalty is finally paying dividends, not just in box scores but in something much bigger. Legacy. Her recent comments didn't just acknowledge Caitlin Clark's impact, they elevated it, while simultaneously reaffirming her own. That's the genius of Mitchell's words. She didn't make it a contest between old and new, between veteran and newcomer. She reminded the world that leadership doesn't fear competition. It welcomes it, embraces it, and uses it as fuel. And that's why fans across the league are still dissecting what she said, not because it was flashy or viral clickbait, not because it was some PR stunt, but because it was real. And that reality check landed like a thunderclap across a league too often mired in jealousy, bitterness, and cheap shots. For the past year, we've seen the narrative hijacked by players like Ajal Wilson throwing side-eye, and Sheryl Swoopes, once a legend of the game, spending more time downplaying Caitlin Clark than celebrating the sport's growth. Mitchell just flipped that script. She proved you can honor a generational star while standing tall in your own legacy. She proved you can tell the truth without bitterness. And in doing so, she gave the WNBA the authenticity it's been starving for. But to really understand why Mitchell's words hit so hard, you need to rewind the tape. Go back to the years when Lexi Hall first joined the Fever, when Indiana was still a punchline, a league doormat. Wins were rarities, losses were routine, and the franchise was buried in irrelevance. During those years, Mitchell was the one sitting at the post-game podium, smiling through the pain, spinning cliches about building blocks after yet another blowout loss. She wasn't just playing basketball. She was carrying a franchise on her shoulders like a lone survivor, dragging a broken body through the desert. Then came Aaliyah Boston, the first true ray of hope. A post anchor with superstar potential, Boston's arrival was like planting a flag in barren land. Finally, there was something to build on. And then came Caitlin Clark, a supernova who didn't just transform Indiana. She bent the entire sports media universe to her will. With her, the Fever became front-page news. Suddenly, a franchise no one wanted to watch was selling out arenas, dominating ratings, and forcing the entire sports world to pay attention. Through it all, Mitchell didn't pout. She didn't run. She didn't act threatened. She embraced the reinforcements. That's why her words about Clark carry more gravity than anyone else's. She has lived both versions of the Fever, the irrelevance and the resurrection. I love the teammate impersonating her because she's accepted it with so much grace and even welcomed vessel open arms to, make this thing happen. So I think it just took a lot of big pieces to make, what it is now. And she knows which one sells tickets and changes culture. But Mitchell's statement went deeper than basketball analysis. It wasn't just professional acknowledgement. It was personal. She didn't just call Clark a teammate. She called her a friend. Outsiders might shrug at that word, but in professional sports, where egos clash and locker rooms fracture, friend is not casual. It's rare. It's a signal that Clark hasn't just integrated into this team. She's healed it. According to Mitchell, Clark didn't arrive to hoard spotlight. She arrived to create an orbit where everyone thrives. That distinction is massive. We've all seen super teams collapse in other leagues. Too many egos, not enough chemistry, and the whole thing implodes under its own hype. But Clark has avoided that trap. She doesn't hog the ball or demand all the glory. She acts like the sun, radiating light so everyone else shines brighter. And Mitchell's resurgence proves it. Since Clark's arrival, Mitchell's profile has exploded. She's more efficient, scoring bigger and clutch moments, and finally getting the national recognition she always deserved but never received. Without Clark, Mitchell might have remained one of the league's best-kept secrets. With her, she's a household name. And the best part, Mitchell doesn't resent it, she respects it. She even shared a perfect example. Caitlin's infamous fine tweet. Remember when Clark joked about a league fine on social media? The pundits pounced, twisting it into arrogance, immaturity, or entitlement. But inside the Fever locker room, it was comedy gold. Teammates laughed, loved it, and saw it as another glimpse of Clark's lightheartedness that the public rarely gets to see. Mitchell made it clear. Outsiders can misinterpret all they want, but inside the team, that moment wasn't a controversy. It was chemistry. It was Clark being Clark. And that's the sign of a healthy culture. If there was resentment toward her, that tweet would have sparked drama. Instead, it became proof that the Fever are united behind their star. And that unity has produced something terrifying for the rest of the WNBA, Indiana's Fab Four. Mitchell, Clark, Boston, and Hall. Together, they're not just a playoff team. They're a blueprint for a dynasty. And Mitchell is all in. She even hinted she'd take less money to keep the core intact. In today's sports landscape, where chasing max contracts is the norm, that's a radical statement. It shows Mitchell understands the bigger picture. Indiana has something historic on its hands, and she's willing to sacrifice personally to preserve it. Why such loyalty? Because Mitchell sees what's happening. The Fever aren't the league's doormat anymore. They're the Storm. With Clark's star power, Boston's inside dominance, Hall's relentless grit, and Mitchell's lethal scoring, this isn't just a team. It's a movement. And it's not about this year or the next. It's about building a culture that will outlast any one player. Mitchell knows it. And she's sending a message to the league. Oh, man, it's unbelievable, and I think the best part about it is that we have their experience when it comes to Sydney Colson, and she's a winner and she's a champion, and then you have people like Kayla who's a PG and can pass the ball. So when I come on a side, I get feedback from some of the best players in the league, and so I don't take those moments for granted either, because I feel like it's a chance to see the game in a different route, and I get to, get to talk to them from a level, just them have a confidence in me to make plays. So I love it. This is a good experience to have. Some cynics will laugh at the idea that friendship could be the foundation of a dynasty, but the results speak louder than cynicism. Mitchell believes in it, Clark fuels it, Boston anchors it, Hall embodies it. Together they've taken a franchise long synonymous with futility and turned it into must-watch TV. The Fever don't just want respect anymore, they demand it, and they're earning it every night. Mitchell's comments weren't just a pat on the back for Caitlin Clark. They were a manifesto. She essentially said, Clark has changed everything, and I'm here for it. There was no jealousy, no bitterness, no insecurity, just gratitude, motivation, and solidarity. That's rare in pro sports, and it's exactly why Indiana feels so different right now. And here's where Sheryl Swoopes comes in. While Mitchell builds bridges, Swoopes tears them down. She spends her interviews casting doubt on Clark's stardom, dismissing her impact as hype and fueling unnecessary division. But Mitchell's words exposed the hypocrisy. If a veteran like Kelsey, who had every reason to feel overshadowed, isn't bitter, why is Swoopes? Why is one of the game's legends so invested in diminishing Clark instead of celebrating what she's doing for the sport? That's the uncomfortable question Mitchell's statement just forced onto the table. The bottom line is this. Kelsey Mitchell didn't just defend Caitlin Clark. She aligned with her. She embraced her. She validated her. And in doing so, she issued a challenge to the league's old guard. Either recognize what's happening in Indiana or get left behind. Because if Mitchell, Clark, Boston, and Hull remain united, the WNBA isn't just facing a contender. It's staring at a dynasty in the making. And Sheryl Swoopes, with all her bitterness, is already on the wrong side of history. Do you stand with Kelsey? Let us know down in the comments below.